Give them your full attention. If it's always someone else's fault, you're not growing. Growth begins the moment you take responsibility for the way your life is moving, the way your choices have shaped your reality. Blaming others may feel easier in the moment. It protects your ego, shields you from the sting of regret, but it also builds a cage around you. Every time you say, "That wasn't me," you surrender the power to change. And if you surrender the power to change, surrender the possibility of becoming something greater than you are today. If it's always someone else's fault, you're not growing, because growth is rooted in responsibility, and the first sign of maturity is the willingness to look inward before pointing outward. When we shift blame to others, we protect our ego for a moment, but we also freeze our potential for a lifetime. And it's easy, almost comforting, tell ourselves that the reason we didn't succeed is because of a boss, a parent, a teacher, a system, or a circumstance. But what we rarely admit is that the very act of blaming strips us of the one power that can transform our life. The power of choice. Time you tell yourself, "It's their fault," you are unconsciously saying, "I am powerless." And once you declare yourself powerless, that becomes impossible, because growth requires agency. It requires the courage to say, "Maybe I played a part, maybe I could have done more, maybe I can do better next time." Taking responsibility doesn't mean you are guilty of everything that went wrong. It means you are willing to extract a lesson from every situation and ask the question, what can I control right now? And the truth is that there is always something you can control. Your effort, your response, your attitude, persistence, your words, your decisions in this minute. Excuses, on the other hand, are seductive. They shield you from discomfort. They allow you to stay the same while convincing yourself that you are justified. But they are also corrosive. Your full attention, because every excuse you make silently tells your brain that change is someone else's job, not yours. And when change becomes someone else's job, your life becomes stagnant. Think about the times you've blamed traffic for being late, blamed your schedule for being unproductive, blamed a colleague for missing a deadline. How often did blame actually solve the problem? Never, because blame doesn't solve, it stalls, while responsibility solves, because it forces you to act. The person who grows is the one who looks at the exact same situation and says, "Traffic is heavy, but I'll leave earlier next time," or "My schedule is tight, but I'll cut distractions and protect my focus," or "The team is behind, but I'll contribute twice as much effort to pull us forward." These are statements of growth, because they turn a moment of weakness into a seed of strength. Imagine a farmer who blames the weather every season, but never studies soil, changes planting techniques, never adapts. He may be right about the weather, but he will starve because he refused to take ownership of the factors within his control, while another farmer in the same climate thrives, not because the conditions are perfect, but because he decided to grow anyway. And life works the same way. Conditions will never be perfect, but your response can always improve. The real danger of blame is not in the words you speak, but in the mindset you practice. Blame tells your subconscious, "Stay still, don't change, it's not your fault," while responsibility whispers, "Move, adapt, learn, rise," and over time, whichever voice you listen to becomes your reality. If you always wait for someone else to change before you change, you'll be waiting forever. If you decide that growth is your duty, then even unfair circumstances become training grounds for resilience. Failures become chapters in your education. Even betrayals become teachers of discernment. This is why the most successful people in any field, leaders, creators, innovators, are not the ones who blame, but the ones who ask relentlessly, what could I have done better? Because they understand that accountability is not punishment, but empowerment. When you take responsibility for your life, you take the steering wheel out of everyone else's hands. And even if the road is rough, at least you are driving. And this is where self-talk comes in. Because when you choose responsibility, your mind will resist. It will want to blame, whisper, why me? It's not fair. And in that moment, your self-talk must be stronger than your excuses. You must say to yourself, yes, life isn't always fair, but I can still grow. Yes, people may fail me, but I will not fail myself. Yes, mistakes were made, but I will learn and rise above them. Because the story you tell yourself about your setbacks becomes the reality you live in. If you practice negative self-talk, every setback will become proof that you are doomed. But if you practice positive self-talk, setback will become proof that you are developing. Remember, accountability is not about shame. It's about power, your full attention. It's about refusing to hand your future to someone else. It's about deciding that even when you are not responsible for what happened, you are always responsible for what happens next. And in that decision lies your growth. Because growth is not automatic, it is intentional, and the intention begins with the moment you say, I own this, I can change this, I will grow from this. So, truly want to make every minute work for you? Start here, with this radical honesty, this bold refusal to hide behind blame. Because when you stop wasting minutes on excuses, you suddenly have minutes available for solutions, for progress, for practice, for building, and in the end, the difference between the person who blames and the person who grows is not opportunity, but responsibility. The same minutes pass through both lives, but one spends them pointing fingers, while the other spends them planting seeds. And when the harvest comes, will be clear who chose blame and who chose growth. And so the first step, the foundation of every other lesson to come, is simple but profound. If it's always someone else's fault, you're not growing. But the moment you take ownership, you unlock the power to change. The clock begins to work for you, not against you. Because every minute, from this one forward, becomes an opportunity to rise. The minutes you waste blaming others are minutes you could invest in becoming stronger, and this truth is sharper than it first appears, because every tick of the clock is neutral, neither for you nor against you, until you choose how to use it. If you fill it with complaints, comparisons, or excuses, then time quietly slips away with nothing to show. But if you fill it with ownership, effort, and progress, then time becomes your ally, your silent partner in growth. The difference between those who advance and those who stay stuck is not that one has more time, because we all get the same 24 hours. But that one spends minutes as an investment, while the other spends them as an escape. And you must ask yourself honestly, am I investing my minutes in things that build me, or am I spending them in ways that drain me? Because the truth is that life will not slow down for you, opportunities will not pause until you feel ready, and every wasted minute is not just lost. It is borrowed from the future you say you want. People often say they don't have time to chase their dreams, exercise, to read, to build skills, but watch them and you'll see hours scrolling through feeds, complaining about bosses, rehashing old arguments, or indulging distractions that give the illusion of relief, but the reality of stagnation, and in those hours lies the evidence that they do have time, they just haven't decided to claim it. Understand this: blame consumes mental energy, and mental energy fuels action. So when you waste that fuel pointing fingers, you starve your own ability to move forward. But when you redirect that energy inward and ask, what can I do with the next 5 minutes to be better? You shift from a passive passenger in life to the active driver of your future. And this shift, though invisible to others, is the single greatest move you can make. Imagine two people faced with the same setback. One spends hours blaming the unfairness of the situation, replaying the injustice, telling everyone about how unlucky they are, while the other, though just as frustrated, asks, what can I learn? What's within my control? How can I prepare differently next time? Which one will be stronger tomorrow? Which one will discover solutions? Which one will quietly grow while the other stays stuck in the story of the past? The answer is obvious, but living it requires discipline, and that discipline begins with mastering the use of your minutes. To make every minute work for you, you must see them as currency, and like money, you can spend them recklessly, or you can invest them with vision. Small investments compound, just as small wastes accumulate. What feels like just a few minutes of blame or distraction becomes hours, then weeks, then years of potential lost, while just a few minutes of reading, practicing, or reflecting becomes hours, then weeks, then years of growth that multiplies. So, when you catch yourself blaming, treat it like a thief in your home. Stop it immediately, reclaim your attention, and redirect that minute into action, however small, because a wasted minute on blame is an unrecoverable loss, but a redirected minute is a seed of momentum. And remember, the way you spend your minutes reflects the way you see yourself. If you believe you are powerless, you waste time on complaints. But if you believe you are capable, you invest time in improvement. So begin shaping your identity by shaping your minutes. Tell yourself, every minute matters, every choice counts, every second is a step. And let that mantra guide you when your mind drifts toward blame, because your self-talk is the guardrail that keeps you on the path of growth. Instead of saying, I don't have time, say, I will make time. Instead of saying, they stopped me, say, I will find a way. Instead of saying, it's not fair, say, life isn't fair, but I am still responsible for my future. And with repetition, these words will program your brain to see minutes not as obstacles, but as opportunities. Understand that investing your minutes is not always glamorous. It may mean waking up earlier, turning off distractions, saying no to gossip, or doing the hard work when no one is watching. But these investments are what compound into strength, knowledge, and resilience, while others remain trapped in cycles of blame. Think of every wasted minute as a door closed and every invested minute as a door opened, because the truth is that opportunities rarely arrive fully formed. They appear disguised as small chances, small efforts, small practices, and only those who consistently invest their minutes can recognize them. So train yourself to treat time as sacred, because once a minute passes, it is gone forever, but the fruit of how you spent it will remain. Bitterness if wasted, or strength if invested. Do not underestimate the silent power of consistency, because the person who invests 15 minutes daily in growth will, over a year, accumulate 90 hours of progress, while the person who wastes 15 minutes daily on blame will accumulate 90 hours of stagnation. And then, though the difference may be invisible today, it becomes undeniable tomorrow. The law of minutes is simple: what you put into them is what you become. And there is no escape from this truth, so the choice is yours. Will you spend your minutes blaming and stay the same, or will you invest them in growth and transform? If you want freedom, if you want to rise, if you want to make every minute work for you, then you must decide now that blame is too expensive, excuses are too costly, and every second wasted is a future sacrificed. Instead, choose to own your time, to invest your minutes in becoming stronger, wiser, and better, because in the end, minutes are life, and how you spend them is how you live, so do not waste them on blame. Make them work for you. They will build a future you can be proud of. The words you whisper to yourself shape your destiny, more than the voices of others ever will, because while the world's opinions can enter your ears, it is the echo of your own self, talk that carves its mark deepest into your mind. If you do not take control of that inner dialogue, it will control you, often in ways that keep you small, timid, and doubtful. Finch's negative self-talk is a thief that sneaks into your future before you even arrive there, stealing confidence, draining energy, and convincing you to quit before you even begin, while positive self-talk is a builder, laying invisible bricks of courage, persistence, and resilience until one day you stand on a foundation so strong that storms cannot knock you down. The difference between these two voices is subtle yet profound, because on the outside, both might sound like whispers in your own head. One slowly poisons your willpower, while the other silently feeds it. And the voice you repeat most often becomes your identity, shaping not only how you see challenges but how you see yourself. If you wake up each morning telling yourself, "I'm tired, I can't do this, life is against me," then you are already defeated before the day begins. But if you wake up telling yourself, "I am capable, I am learning, I will make progress today," then you walk into the day armored with possibility. This is not about pretending life is easy or ignoring real struggles. It is about choosing which story you will live by, because every story starts in your own mind. The way you narrate your experience becomes the reality you inhabit. For example, two people can face the same failure. One tells themselves, "I'm a loser, I'll never succeed, I should stop trying," while the other tells themselves, "This is painful, but I am learning, I will grow stronger, and this setback is part of the process." Which one will try again? Which one will rise? Which one will eventually break through? The answer is clear, but living that answer requires a decision to train your self-talk, to discipline your inner voice, the same way you would discipline your body in the gym. Consider your mind like a garden. Your self-talk are the seeds, and every time you repeat a thought, you water it, you give it life, you allow it to spread. So if your seeds are negative, if you are constantly saying, "I can't, I'm not enough, it's impossible," then your garden becomes choked with weeds that block out growth. But if your seeds are positive, "Pete, I am strong, I am improving, I am worthy," then your garden blooms, and over time, the flowers of confidence, focus, and determination flourish. But here's the catch. Your brain will always lean toward the negative at first. Survival instincts have wired humans to notice danger, problems, and weaknesses, so positive self-talk is not natural at the start, must be intentional, it must be practiced, and it must be repeated until it becomes second nature. Think of an athlete before a competition. Do they say, "I'll probably lose, I'm not ready, others are better than me"? No, because they know such words would sabotage performance. So instead they repeat affirmations, pump themselves up, remind themselves of their preparation, and visualize victory, because the inner game is always won before the outer game begins. And this principle applies not only to sports, but to every area of life: career, relationships, health, personal growth. Whatever you whisper to yourself will determine the strength with which you show up. And let's be honest, life will not always give you encouragement from others. Sometimes people will doubt you, criticize you, or ignore your efforts. If you rely only on external voices to validate you, you will be crushed the moment approval is withdrawn. But if you learn to validate yourself with positive self-talk, if you learn to say, "I believe in me even when no one else does," then you become unstoppable because you carry your own fuel. The beauty of self-talk is that it doesn't require money, permission, or perfect conditions. It only requires awareness and repetition. And the more you practice it, the stronger it becomes, like training a muscle. In fact, simplest way to begin transforming your life is to transform the language you use with yourself. Replace "I can't" with "We'll find a way." Replace "I'm improving daily." Replace "This is too hard" with "This is a challenge and will make me stronger." Because your brain listens to you more than anyone else with. And over time, it will believe whatever you tell it most consistently. Do not underestimate this, because some of the greatest leaders, inventors, and achievers in history succeeded not because they had fewer doubts, but because they learned to speak louder than their doubts. They learned to remind themselves of their purpose, their vision, their power, even when failure whispered otherwise. So ask yourself, what story are you telling yourself right now? Are you narrating a story of limitations or a story of possibilities? Convincing yourself to quit or convincing yourself to continue? Remember, you are always talking to yourself. The question is whether you are talking yourself into fear or into courage. Train your inner voice to be a coach, not a critic, a motivator, not a saboteur. Because when the world grows quiet, when no one is clapping for you, when you are alone with your doubts, the only voice left will be your own. In that moment, that voice will either lift you or bury you. So let it lift you. Let it speak life into you. Let it become your greatest ally. When your self-talk aligns with your vision, no obstacle can break you, no failure can define you, no setback can silence you. You will discover that the greatest transformation of your life begins not with the world around you but with the whispers inside you. Time is not your enemy. Neglect is, because every one of us wakes up each day with the same 24 hours, the same 1,440 minutes, the same ticking clock that cannot be paused, borrowed, or reversed. And yet, some people seem to accomplish extraordinary things, while others barely keep up. And the difference is not luck or talent alone, but how those minutes are spent, how those invisible building blocks of life are either wasted on distractions or invested in growth, because time itself is neutral. It does not punish, it does not reward, it simply passes. And the way you treat it decides whether it becomes your greatest ally or your quietest assassin. Neglect is what turns minutes into regret, because the truth is you don't lose hours all at once. You lose them 5 minutes at a time. In the moments you scroll endlessly, complain pointlessly, gossip idly, or procrastinate on what you know matters most, and every time you do, time doesn't shout at you. It doesn't demand attention. It simply slips by silently, and by the time you notice, it's already gone. The most dangerous phrase you can ever tell yourself is, "I'll do it later." Because later is a thief dressed in polite clothing. Later steals dreams. Later piles up into years of unused potential. Later convinces you that tomorrow will always be available, until one day it isn't. And what you neglected yesterday becomes the weight you carry today. Think of your time as a bank account. 1,440 minutes deposited every day, and at midnight, whatever you didn't use wisely is gone forever. No saving, no rollover, no refund. And the question becomes, are you spending your minutes like loose change dropped carelessly, or are you investing them like currency into the future you want? Because the people you admire, the ones who build companies, write books, master skills, create art, or live with deep peace, are not blessed with extra hours. They are simply disciplined investors of their minutes, choosing creation over consumption, growth over excuses, presence over distraction. And it's not just about productivity in the sense of checking off tasks, about living deliberately, because when you neglect time, you are not just neglecting tasks. You are neglecting yourself, your growth, your potential, your health, your relationships, your peace of mind, because everything valuable in life requires time, and when you waste it, you waste the soil in which your future could have grown. Imagine a farmer who leaves the field unattended for a season. The weeds will not wait politely for him, they will take over. Neglect always invites decay. And in the same way, when you neglect your minutes, your mind grows cluttered, your body grows weaker, skills grow stale, your opportunities fade, and it all happens silently until the day you wake up and realize how much has been lost. Give them your full attention. Is that the opposite is also true when you honor your minutes, when you treat time as a sacred gift? Everything begins to flourish. The mind sharpens, the body strengthens, the skills expand, the opportunities multiply, and suddenly life feels purposeful, not because circumstances changed, but because your use of time changed. And how do you honor your minutes? By deciding consciously what matters, by cutting what doesn't, by replacing "I don't have time" with "it's not a priority," and seeing if that statement still feels true, because the moment you start saying, "It's not a priority to exercise, it's not a priority to learn, not a priority to build my dreams," you'll feel the truth sting, and you'll realize that time is rarely the problem. Priorities are. To make every minute work for you, you must also learn the discipline of focus, because time without focus is like water poured into the sand, disappears with nothing to show, but time with focus is like water poured into a seed. It creates life, it multiplies, it bears fruit. Every day you must ask yourself, where is my focus going? Because wherever my focus goes, my minutes follow, and wherever my minutes go, my life grows. Remember that this time is not only for tasks, it is for presence, for love, for rest, for gratitude. Give them your attention, because making every minute work for you doesn't mean stuffing every second with business. It means aligning every second with purpose, so that even rest is intentional, even play is enriching, even stillness is nourishing. Because neglect is not only failing to work hard, neglect is failing to live deeply. And when you rush through life distracted and unfocused, you neglect the beauty of now. So train yourself to see every minute as alive with possibility, to guard it from thieves of distraction, to invest it into growth, into connection, creation, because once it passes, it is gone forever. And the saddest words you could ever speak are, "I thought I had more time." But the most powerful words you can live by are, "I made every minute count." Time is not your enemy, it is the canvas, the foundation, the stage upon which you write your story. And when you stop neglecting it, when you begin to invest it wisely, you will discover that you don't need more hours. You only need more awareness, more discipline, more reverence for the gift already in your hands. Because the truth is that you don't own time, you only borrow it. What you do with it determines whether you leave behind a story of regret or a legacy of purpose. Obstacles will come, they always do, because life was never designed to be a smooth straight line from where you are to where you want to be. And if you believe that the presence of obstacles means something is wrong with you, or that you are unworthy of success, you will constantly misread the journey. But the truth is, obstacles are not barriers to your growth. They are the very material from which growth is built, because every struggle you face is a test of your resilience. Every challenge is a mirror showing you what skills you lack and what strengths you must develop, and every setback is a teacher disguised as difficulty. But here is the secret that separates those who move forward from those who give up. It is not the obstacle itself that defines your future, but the story you tell yourself about it, because your self-talk turns obstacles either into prisons that lock you down or into stepping stones that lift you higher. When you encounter resistance and whisper to yourself, "This is too much, I can't do it, I'm unlucky," you turn the obstacle into a wall, a barrier you cannot climb. But when you face the same resistance and instead say, "This is a challenge, I will learn from it, I will become stronger because of it," then the obstacle becomes a ladder, giving you elevation and perspective. And though the obstacle has not changed, your relationship to it has, and that shift in mindset is the key to transformation. Of water flowing down a mountain, it does not curse the rocks in its path. It does not say, "Why me?" It simply finds a way around, over, through, and because of that persistence, water carves valleys, it shapes landscapes, it moves mountains grain by grain. And in the same way, you must train yourself, talk to flow around life's rocks, to refuse stagnation, to turn pressure into movement, because the obstacles that feel immovable today are often the very forces that sculpt your greatness tomorrow. When Thomas Edison failed hundreds of times to create the light bulb, he could have told himself, "I am a failure." But instead his self-talk was, "I found hundreds of ways that don't work, and each brings me closer to the one that will." And it was that reframing, that relentless positive self-talk, that allowed him to persist where others quit. And the same principle applies to you. The story you attach to your obstacles will determine whether you stop or whether you grow. Not mistake this for blind optimism. It is not about pretending obstacles are easy. It is about deciding they are useful, your fuel to attention, because the difficulty you face is not a punishment, but a preparation, sharpening your character, stretching your patience, strengthening your faith, and expanding your creativity. And if you learn to tell yourself this truth in the darkest moments, you will rise where others fall. The enemy is not the obstacle. The enemy is the negative self-talk that convinces you the obstacle means the end. So you must master your language, must become your own coach in those moments, saying, "Yes, this hurts. Yes, it is unfair. Yes, I am struggling, but I am not broken. I am learning. I am growing. I am moving. And this very moment is shaping me into the person who can handle what's ahead." And here is the beauty. Once you overcome an obstacle, the memory of your struggle becomes your evidence, your proof, your testimony that you can survive difficulty. The more evidence you collect, the stronger your self-talk becomes, until eventually when obstacles come, instead of saying, "Why me?" you begin to say, "Try me," because you now carry confidence born not from theory but from survival. Imagine if you saw every challenge as a gym for your soul, every problem as weight training for your character, failure as endurance practice for your vision. Would you fear obstacles then, or would you embrace them as necessary workouts for the life you are building? The answer lies in the voice you cultivate inside, because when that voice is trained to see growth in difficulty, you stop running from obstacles and start running through them. But beware, because if you let negative self-talk control you, every small obstacle will look like a mountain, every inconvenience will feel like a crisis, every delay will seem like rejection, and you will waste your minutes drowning in frustration, instead of swimming toward solutions, and over time, your full attention, your life will shrink to the size of your fears. The world is filled with people who gave up at the first sign of difficulty, people who blamed obstacles instead of mastering them. And their lives became smaller because their self-talk was smaller. But it does not have to be you, because you can choose a different script. You can train yourself to say, obstacles are not the end of the road, they are the road. And when you internalize that truth, obstacles lose their power to paralyze you. In fact, the presence of obstacles is often proof that you are moving, because no one encounters resistance by standing still. Resistance only comes when you are pushing forward, when you are stretching beyond your comfort zone, when you are walking toward growth. And so when you feel resistance, instead of despairing, let it be your confirmation that you are on the right path. Every dream worth pursuing will test you. Every vision worth building will challenge you. Every meaningful life will carry scars from battles fought against obstacles, but those scars are not signs of weakness. They are signs of persistence. They are proof you did not surrender, and they are reminders that your self-talk carried you through when nothing else could. So, the next time you face an obstacle, pause and listen to your inner voice, and if it whispers defeat, change the script, speak louder, speak stronger, and remind yourself that you are not defined by the obstacle. You are defined by your response, because at the end of the day, life is not measured by the absence of challenges, but by the presence of growth. And growth only comes when obstacles demand more of you than comfort ever could. So choose to see obstacles not as enemies, but as allies, disguised opportunities forcing you to rise. Because if you master yourself, talk in those moments, you will discover that obstacles are not here to stop you. They are here to strengthen you, to prepare you, to elevate you, and every time you overcome one, you add a new chapter to the story of your resilience, a story that proves again and again that nothing can break you as long as your inner voice keeps saying, I will grow, I will rise, I will move forward. Discipline is love in action, because discipline is not about punishment or restriction as many believe. It is about choosing the long-term version of yourself over the short-term cravings of the moment. It is the daily declaration that says, I care about my future too much to sabotage it with comfort right now. And when you think of discipline this way, it stops feeling like a prison and starts looking like a gift, a commitment to honor the best within you. Every time you choose discipline, you cast a vote for your future self. You affirm with your actions that your goals, your health, your peace, your success matter more than the fleeting temptations that pull at you in the present, and in that choice you are practicing the highest form of self-love, because you are proving to yourself that you are worthy of consistency, worthy of effort, worthy of the life you dream of. But the truth is, discipline does not come naturally. It must be cultivated, and the fuel that drives it is your self-talk. Because when your mind whispers, skip it, it doesn't matter, do it later, only a stronger inner voice can rise and say, no, I will follow through, I will honor my commitment, I will do what I said I would do even when I don't feel like it. And it is this repetition of disciplined choices that builds integrity. And integrity is the bedrock of growth. Think about it. How many times have you set a goal? Exercise more, eat healthier, write daily, study consistently, save money, only to abandon it at the first sign of inconvenience. And each time you quit, your self-trust weakens, because your brain records evidence that you do not keep promises to yourself. And when self-trust erodes, discipline becomes even harder. But the opposite is also true. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, your self-trust strengthens, and with it your discipline grows, until eventually discipline becomes less about forcing yourself and more about being aligned with the identity you've built. Discipline is love because it gives structure to your dreams. It takes vague wishes and turns them into habits, and habits are what transform your life quietly over time. For example, a single workout may not change your body, a single day of reading may not change your mind, a single act of saving may not change your finances, but discipline turns that single act into a pattern, and patterns turn into transformation, and what once felt impossible becomes natural, because you have trained yourself through repetition. Yet so many people fear discipline because they associate it with loss, with missing out, with being too strict. But in reality, lack of discipline is what steals from you. It steals your health. It steals your confidence. It steals your opportunities. It steals your peace. Because every time you give in to laziness, distraction, or excuses, you trade what you want most for what you want now. And that trade is always unfair. But discipline protects you from that theft. It is the guardrail that keeps you from driving off the cliff of regret. The voice that powers it is your self-talk. The disciplined person does not rely on motivation alone, because motivation is fleeting. It rises and falls like the weather. But self-talk is what sustains you when motivation fades. It is the internal dialogue that says, I will keep going because my commitment is stronger than my feelings. And that is why the most powerful athletes, leaders, creators often repeat affirmations, mantras, and inner speeches. They know discipline begins in the mind, not the body. And the body only follows where the mind commands. So if you want to master discipline, begin by mastering the words you speak to yourself daily. I'll do it tomorrow. With, I will start now. Replace, I don't feel like it. With, my feelings don't control my actions. Replace, I can't. Why? Will find a way. Because the way you talk to yourself in the moments of choice determines whether discipline wins or excuses win. Discipline is love because it creates freedom. Freedom from regret, freedom from weakness, freedom from wasted potential. Because when you live with discipline, you wake up lighter, stronger, more confident, because you know you are building instead of breaking. You know you are moving forward instead of drifting backward. You know you are living with intention instead of living by accident. Here's the truth you must accept. Discipline will often feel uncomfortable. It will demand sacrifice. It will push you beyond comfort zones. But comfort zones never built greatness. Comfort zones built mediocrity. And if you want a life that matters, you must trade comfort for consistency. Discipline is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. But if you neglect it, it weakens. And this is why the small daily choices matter so much. Not because they seem big in the moment, your full attention, but because they are training your discipline muscle for the bigger tests ahead. If you cannot say no to 5 minutes of distraction, how will you say yes to 5 years of building your dream? If you cannot control your words in anger, how will you control your direction in crisis? Discipline prepares you for the storms before they arrive. It builds resilience when life demands more of you, and without it, even the best intentions collapse under pressure. So love yourself enough to be disciplined. Speak to yourself with the voice of a mentor, not a victim. Remind yourself that discipline is not punishment but preparation, and preparation is the purest form of self-respect. Every time you rise early to train, every time you resist the impulse to quit, every time you finish what you started, you are saying to yourself, I matter, my future matters, my vision matters. And those words, repeated with action, create a momentum that cannot be stopped. So never fear discipline, embrace it, because it is not the enemy of joy but the pathway to it. And when your self-talk aligns with discipline, attention, you will discover that the hardest part is not doing the work, but deciding to be the kind of person who keeps promises to themselves. And once that decision is made, once that identity is embraced, discipline becomes less about forcing yourself and more about expressing who you are. Remember, discipline is love in action, self-talk is its fuel, and every time you choose discipline, you are planting seeds of a future where regret has no place, because you will not look back on wasted potential. Look back on a life built minute by minute, choice by choice, word by word, into something strong, purposeful, and unshakable. Gratitude is not just a polite word you say before meals or a quick response when someone does you a favor. Gratitude is a mindset, a lens through which you choose to see your life. And when you learn to live in gratitude, you unlock a source of strength, peace, and resilience that no obstacle can take from you. Because gratitude transforms the way you interpret your circumstances. It changes problems into lessons, setbacks into setups, and daily routines into daily gifts. And the truth is, gratitude is not something that comes naturally to most people, because the human mind is wired to look for threats, to spot what is missing, to dwell on what went wrong. But you can retrain your mind through self-talk to notice what is present, what is working, what is beautiful, and what is possible. This retraining is not just about feeling good, it is about giving yourself power, because gratitude is the antidote to negativity, the weapon against comparison, the cure for envy, and the key to contentment. And without it, no amount of success will satisfy you, because without gratitude you will always want more, always feel less, always chase and never arrive. But with gratitude, even the smallest blessing feels abundant, even the simplest moment feels precious, even the hardest struggle feels purposeful, because you have chosen to see the hidden treasure within it. Imagine waking up every day, and instead of immediately complaining about how early it is, how much work you have, or how tired you feel, you instead say to yourself, thank you for this breath. Thank you for this body. Thank you for another chance to grow, to love, to make today count. Do you realize how differently your day would unfold if that was your starting point? Because gratitude sets the emotional tone for your entire day. It primes your mind to focus on abundance instead of lack, and abundance attracts more abundance, because what you focus on grows. Think of gratitude as sunlight for the garden of your mind. Without it, your thoughts wilt, your spirit darkens, your energy weakens. But with it, your potential blossoms, your resilience strengthens, your outlook brightens, and your joy expands. The self-talk you use to cultivate gratitude is simple but powerful. It is the daily practice of naming what you are thankful for, speaking it out loud if you can, writing it down if you must, but never letting your mind drift too long in complaint without pulling it back with thanks. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes, until gratitude is not something you force, but something you are. Many people wait for big victories to feel grateful. The new job, the dream house, the recognition, breakthrough. But gratitude is most powerful when it is practiced in the ordinary. Because if you cannot find gratitude in the sunrise, the smile of a loved one, in the quiet moments of peace, you will not suddenly find it in a bigger paycheck or a new car. External success only magnifies your inner state, and if your inner state is ungrateful, nothing external will ever feel enough. But if your inner state is grateful, everything feels like a gift. And here lies the connection between gratitude and growth. When you practice gratitude, you stop wasting energy on what you cannot control. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop resenting the journey, and instead you focus on what you have, what you can do, and what is within reach. And that focus creates momentum, because energy flows where attention goes, and if your attention is on gratitude, your energy will naturally be creative, resilient, and solution-oriented. But if your attention is on complaints, your energy will be drained, negative, and stagnant, and stagnation kills growth. Gratitude also fuels relationships, because when you choose to speak words of thanks to the people around you, you strengthen connections, you inspire loyalty, you spread positivity. You create environments where growth is shared instead of hindered. And think about how many conflicts could dissolve if gratitude replaced entitlement. Many workplaces would thrive if gratitude replaced criticism. How many families would heal if gratitude replaced resentment? All of that begins with self-talk, with the voice inside that says, "I am thankful," and then speaks that thankfulness outward. But gratitude does not mean ignoring pain or pretending everything is perfect. It means acknowledging the pain while still finding the good. It means saying, "This is hard, but I am thankful for what it is teaching me." It means saying, "This hurts. I am grateful for the strength I am discovering in myself." Because gratitude does not erase struggle, it reframes it, and in reframing it gives you the power to endure and overcome. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, wrote about finding meaning even in the darkest suffering, and gratitude was part of that meaning, because even in horrific conditions he trained his mind to find something to be thankful for. The memory of his wife, the chance to comfort another prisoner, the hope of one day telling his story. And that gratitude gave him the strength to survive. And if gratitude can empower someone in the midst of such unimaginable suffering, imagine what it can do for you in your daily challenges. But you must be intentional, because gratitude does not simply appear, it must be cultivated, and the tool of cultivation is your inner dialogue. So when your mind says, "This is not enough," you must answer, "I am grateful for what I have, and I will build from here." When your mind says, "Why is this happening to me?" you must respond, "This is happening for me, to shape me, to grow me, to prepare me." When your mind says, "I have nothing to be thankful for," you must counter, "I have breath, I have time, I have opportunity. These are treasures." Because gratitude is not about ignoring what is missing, but about amplifying what is present. And once you master this practice, you will find that gratitude turns every moment into fuel for growth. It is impossible to be grateful and miserable at the same time, because gratitude and misery cannot occupy the same mental space. One will always push out the other, and the one you feed with your self-talk is the one that will dominate. So choose gratitude, speak it, think it, live it, because gratitude is not only a feeling, it is a discipline, a decision, and ultimately a lifestyle. and the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes, until one day you realize that gratitude is no longer something you do, but something you are. And when that happens, growth becomes inevitable, because a grateful heart cannot stay stagnant. It is always open, always learning, always expanding, always finding reasons to move forward. And that is why gratitude is not optional for those who want transformation. It is essential, because without it you will always feel like a victim of life, but with it you become the author of your experience, shaping every moment with the power of thanks. Failure is not the end, it is the beginning, because every time you fall short of your expectation, every time something does not work the way you hoped, every time you stumble and feel the sting of disappointment, you are not being told to stop, you are being invited to learn, to adjust, to rise stronger. This is a truth too many people miss, because society has painted failure as shameful, as proof of weakness, as something to hide from or deny. But the reality is that failure is the tuition you pay for growth. It is the training ground where wisdom is earned. It is the raw material from which resilience is built. And if you learn to change the way you talk to yourself about failure, you will transform it from a heavy burden into a powerful teacher, because your self-talk after failure determines whether you stay stuck in regret or step forward into growth. When you fail and say to yourself, "I'm not good enough, I'll never succeed, I'm cursed," you are digging your own hole deeper, trapping yourself in a cycle of fear and hesitation. When you fail and instead say, "This is feedback, this is part of the process, this is shaping me," then failure loses its power to break you and gains the power to build you. Because failure is not final unless you quit. It only becomes final when you let your negative inner dialogue convince you that you are finished. The truth is the most successful people in history have failed more times than most will ever attempt. Yet they mastered the art of reframing failure. They turned their self-talk into a source of energy instead of despair. Think of Abraham Lincoln, who lost multiple elections, faced business collapse, personal tragedy, yet told himself, "I am still capable, I am still moving forward," until he became one of the greatest presidents in history. Or think of Michael Jordan, who was cut from his high school basketball team, but told himself, "This is motivation, this is not the end," and used that failure to fuel a career that made him legendary. Or think of Oprah Winfrey, who was fired from her first job in television, told she was unfit for TV, but who reframed that rejection into redirection, using it to propel her toward creating one of the most impactful media empires of all time. And in each of these examples, failure did not disappear. It remained painful, embarrassing, difficult. But their self-talk turned it into fertilizer for growth instead of poison for their confidence. And you can do the same, 'cause failure is universal. No one escapes it, but not everyone responds the same. And the difference between those who rise and those who stay down is not luck. It is language. It is the words they speak to themselves in the quiet moments after they fall. It is the ability to say, "This is not who I am. This is just a step in the process. I will learn. I will adjust. I will rise again." And those words carry a power that can shift the entire trajectory of your life. Too often we define ourselves by failure, saying, "I failed, therefore I am a failure." But this is a lie, because failure is an event, not an identity. It is something that happens, not something you are. And once you separate your identity from your mistakes, you reclaim the freedom to try again without the heavy chains of shame. And understand this: failure hurts. It will sting. It may bring tears. It may shake your confidence, but hurt is not the enemy. Hurt is a sign you are stretching, that you are reaching beyond your comfort zone, that you are alive and trying, and growth cannot come without that pain, because comfort never builds character, only challenge does, and failure is challenge in its purest form. So instead of fearing it, expect it, welcome it, because each failure means you are in the arena. You are playing the game. You are taking the risks that most people avoid, and that alone sets you apart. Think of failure as a teacher who gives tough lessons, but the lessons you learn are the exact ones you need to succeed. Because every failed attempt shows you what doesn't work, every rejection strengthens your resilience, every setback expands your patience, every disappointment forces you to refine your strategy, and over time those lessons accumulate into wisdom that no success alone could ever teach you. But for this process to work, your self-talk must be trained to reframe. So instead of saying, "I wasted my time," you say, "I gained experience." Instead of saying, "I embarrassed myself," you say, "I gained courage to try." Instead of saying, "I lost," you say, "I learned." Because the difference between wasted failure and valuable failure is not the event but the perspective. Tension and perspective is shaped by the words you repeat to yourself. Failure is also a mirror, showing you where you still need growth, where your habits are weak, where your preparation was lacking, where your mindset must be sharpened. And that mirror is not meant to shame you, but to guide you, to give you clarity. Success often hides flaws, but failure exposes them, and once exposed you can fix them, and that is how failure refines you into someone capable of holding greater success when it arrives. Many people run from failure because they cannot stand to see themselves in that mirror. But if you learn to face it with honesty and gratitude, you will accelerate your growth far beyond those who avoid risks altogether. And here is the truth you must embrace. Failure is proof you are trying, and trying is proof you have not given up. And as long as you have not given up, you are still in the game, still moving, still capable of turning today's failure into tomorrow's victory. But only if your self-talk keeps you in motion, only if your inner voice continues to say, "This is not the end, I am not finished, I will rise again." And that voice, repeated over and over, becomes the soundtrack of resilience, the anthem that carries you through the storms. So from this day forward, change the way you speak about failure. Stop treating it as a curse and start treating it as a course you must take to graduate into greatness. And remember that failure does not define you, quitting does, fear does, surrender does. But as long as you keep rising, long as you keep speaking life into yourself after each fall, then failure becomes your greatest ally, your sharpest teacher, your strongest foundation. Because in the end it is not success that builds you, it is failure transformed by resilient self-talk. And the more you practice this transformation, the more unstoppable you become. Focus is the silent force that determines whether your minutes add up to progress or dissolve into distraction, because in a world that constantly competes for your attention, notifications buzzing, voices demanding, temptations whispering, your ability to hold your mind steady on what matters most has become one of the rarest and most valuable skills. The truth is that without focus, even your greatest talents and deepest desires will scatter like seeds on rocky soil. But with focus, modest effort compounds into extraordinary growth, and the bridge between distraction and discipline is the self-talk you practice every single day. Because your inner voice can either train your mind to wander endlessly, or command it to return to the task. And what you whisper to yourself when the pull of distraction is strong will decide the trajectory of your entire life. Think about how many people dream big dreams, speak passionately about their goals, write lists of ambitions, but never achieve them, not because they are incapable, but because they never learned to master their focus. They allowed every interruption, every excuse, craving for instant gratification to steal their minutes. And as the minutes went, so went their opportunities, and so went their lives, because life is nothing more than the sum of what you give your attention to. And if your attention is scattered, so is your progress. But if your attention is concentrated, so is your power, and this concentration is not a gift given to some lucky few. It is a habit built through self-talk and repeated practice. When your mind drifts toward distraction, you must train yourself to say, "Not now, I choose to focus, I choose to build, I choose to give this moment to what matters most." And though that may sound simple, those words spoken consistently carve new grooves in your brain, building the muscle of focus, just as surely as lifting weights builds the muscle of strength. And make no mistake, focus is a muscle, not a switch. It grows with use and weakens with neglect. And most people fail, not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they allowed their focus muscle to atrophy in a culture that thrives on distraction, scrolling endlessly, switching tasks constantly, chasing novelty instead of mastery. And yet every time you bring your attention back, every time you resist the temptation to check the trivial and return to the meaningful, you are strengthening that muscle. And over time your ability to focus becomes your competitive edge in a world drowning in noise. But focus is not just about exclusion, it is also about clarity, because you cannot focus on what you have not clearly defined, and too many people wake up without intention, drifting through their days without knowing what deserves their attention most, and in the absence of clarity, distractions become default. When you know your priorities, when you have decided what matters most, your self-talk has a target, a rallying point, so that when distractions appear, you can say with conviction, "This is not aligned with my purpose. I will return to the work that matters." And that simple redirection, practiced day after day, creates compounding results that most people will never experience. Consider the stories of great innovators, artists, leaders. They all speak about long hours of deep focus, of shutting out the world to enter the flow of their craft, because they understood that focus is where creativity blooms, where breakthroughs are born, where mastery is forged. And while the world was busy being distracted, they were busy building. That building was only possible because of the inner dialogue that refused to be seduced by distractions. But let's be honest, focus is not easy. Your brain will resist, it will crave novelty, it will whisper lies like, "Just a quick break, just a few minutes scrolling, just one more episode." And if you believe those whispers, your hours will vanish, and your goals with them. But if you answer back with stronger words, "I will not trade my vision for temporary comfort. I will not exchange my future for this fleeting urge. I choose to stay locked in," then you reclaim your time, and time reclaimed is life reclaimed. And it is not about perfection. You will drift. You will be tempted, you will get distracted. But the difference between those who stay stuck and those who succeed is not that the successful never lose focus, but that they have trained their self-talk to bring them back quickly to say, "Enough," return to the tension. And that ability to return is what creates the long stretches of meaningful effort that build dreams into reality. Focus also requires boundaries, because if you do not protect your time, the world will consume it, and your self-talk is the guard at the gate, the voice that says, "No, I cannot give my attention to this right now. My purpose demands my focus." And when you learn to speak that way to yourself, you also learn to speak it to others, and suddenly your environment begins to align with your priorities, because people respect what you respect, and if you respect your focus, they will too. Focus is also deeply connected to presence, to the ability to be fully here, in this task, in this conversation, in this moment, and self-talk is what anchors you, because when your mind races ahead with anxiety or drifts backward with regret, you must remind yourself, stay here. This is where my power is. This is where my minutes are. This is where my growth happens. And each time you pull yourself back, you strengthen your presence, and presence is what transforms ordinary actions into extraordinary results. Focus is not only about work, it is about life, because how often do people miss the joy of a meal, the laughter of a child, the beauty of a sunset, because their mind was elsewhere, lost in distraction, and gratitude without focus cannot be felt, love without focus cannot be given, growth without focus cannot be sustained. So mastering focus is not just about productivity, it is about fulfillment. It is about experiencing the fullness of your moments, instead of sleepwalking through them. And in all of this, remember that the most powerful tool you have is your inner voice, because focus is fragile, easily broken. Self-talk is the glue that keeps it together, the reminder that says, "This is where I belong, this is what I choose, this is what matters now." And when that voice is strong, distractions lose their hold, because nothing external is more persuasive than the inner conviction of a disciplined mind. So decide today to become a master of focus, to train yourself, talk to guide your attention back again and again, to protect your minutes as the treasures they are, because every moment you give to distraction is a moment you never get back. But every moment you give to focus builds into a future that reflects your purpose, your passion, and your potential. And when you live that way, you will not only achieve more, you will live more fully, because focus is not just about doing, it is about being. And when you are fully present, fully locked in, fully alive in each moment, you discover that life is richer, growth is deeper, every minute truly works for you. Mindset is the master key that unlocks every other principle in your life. Because the way you think about yourself, about others, and about the world becomes the filter through which every experience passes, and if that filter is negative, limited, and filled with doubt, then even the greatest opportunities will look like burdens. But if that filter is positive, expansive, and filled with belief, then even the hardest challenges will look like stepping stones. And the truth is, your mindset is not something you are born with permanently. It is something you build daily through self-talk. Every thought you repeat, every belief you reinforce, every phrase you allow to live in your mind is shaping the way you see yourself and your future. This is why two people can face the same circumstance and walk away with completely different outcomes. One says, "This is impossible, I can't do it, I'm stuck," while the other says, "This is tough, but I will figure it out, I will grow, I will rise." And the only difference is mindset, the inner voice that interprets reality. And the one who chooses growth builds a life of progress, while the other builds a prison of excuses. Mindset is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about deciding that no matter what happens, you will find a way to learn, to improve, to adapt. Keep moving, because the most powerful thing you can ever say to yourself is, I am capable of growth. And once that belief takes root, it becomes the engine that pulls you forward through every storm. Think of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. The fixed mindset whispers, "This is who I am. I cannot change. My abilities are limited. My intelligence is set. My circumstances define me." While the growth mindset whispers, "I can learn. I can improve. I can adapt. I can transform my life one choice at a time." And these whispers matter because they direct your behavior. And over time, behavior becomes destiny. So if you want to change your destiny, you must first change your mindset. The way to do that is by becoming intentional with your self-talk. Too many people let their inner dialogue run wild, fueled by fear, criticism, doubt. But if you do not take control of your inner voice, it will take control of you. And it will shrink your vision. It will paralyze your action. It will drain your courage. But if you choose instead to speak life, to speak possibility, to speak growth, then you begin to rewire your brain. You begin to train your mind to expect solutions instead of problems, opportunities instead of obstacles, victories instead of defeats. This rewiring is the foundation of every great transformation. Think of a student who struggles in math. If their self-talk says, "I am bad at math, I'll never get it," their brain shuts down, they stop trying, they prove themselves right. But if their self-talk says, "I don't understand this yet, but I can learn, I can practice, I can improve," suddenly the brain stays open, effort continues, growth happens, and what once looked like weakness becomes strength. And the same principle applies in every area of life, because mindset plus self-talk is the formula for growth. Mindset is also about expectation, because what you expect shapes what you see, and what you see shapes what you do. So if you expect failure, you will find reasons to quit. But if you expect growth, you will find reasons to keep going. And this is why affirmations are so powerful. Not because they magically change reality, but because they train your expectations, they shift your filter, they tune your focus toward growth. And once your focus changes, your energy follows. And once your energy follows, your actions change. And once your actions change, your life transforms. But understand this: cultivating a growth mindset is not a one-time event. It is a daily practice. Every day your circumstances will test you. Every day doubts will whisper. Every day fear will knock. Your self-talk must be strong enough to answer, to reinforce the mindset you have chosen. And this is why consistency matters. Mindset is like a garden. If you do not plant positive seeds, weeds of negativity will grow automatically. And the only way to keep the weeds from taking over is to water the seeds of growth every day with words of truth, of faith, of possibility. And mindset does not mean ignoring reality. It means choosing how to respond to reality, because you cannot control every circumstance, but you can control your perspective. And perspective is the power to turn loss into lesson, pain into purpose, failure into feedback, and problems into progress. And that power comes from the voice inside you. The voice that chooses to frame life in a way that moves you forward instead of holding you back. History is filled with people who succeeded not because they had the easiest path, but because they had the strongest mindset. Athletes who overcame defeat after defeat because they told themselves, "I will come back stronger." Leaders who faced rejection after rejection but told themselves, "This is not the end, it is preparation." Inventors who failed hundreds of times but told themselves, "Each attempt brings me closer to the answer." And in every case, their success was born not from perfect conditions, but from resilient self-talk that kept their mindset focused on growth. And here is the beauty. You have that same power, because mindset is not reserved for the extraordinary. It is built by ordinary people who choose extraordinary inner dialogue, who refuse to let fear be the loudest voice in their mind, who train themselves to speak strength even when they feel weak. And if you begin today, if you begin speaking to yourself with the conviction of someone who believes in growth, then slowly, steadily, surely, your mindset will shift, your behavior will align, your life will transform, because you cannot plant words of growth and harvest a life of stagnation. The harvest will always match the seeds. So decide now, decide that your self-talk will reflect the mindset of growth. Decide that every time you are tempted to shrink, you will say, I expand. Every time you are tempted to doubt, you will say, I believe. Every time you are tempted to quit, you will say, I continue. And those declarations, repeated day after day, will become your new identity, and your identity will carry you into a future where nothing is impossible, because a growth mindset sees no limits, only levels, and every level is an invitation to rise higher, to push further, to live fuller, to become the person you were always meant to be. Resilience is the hidden strength that determines how far you can go in life, because while talent may open the door and opportunity may invite you in, it is resilience that keeps you standing when storms rage, when setbacks come, when the ground beneath you feels shaky. And in truth, every person will face moments of disappointment, rejection, and failure, but the ones who rise, who build, who thrive are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who refuse to stay down, and the core of that refusal lies in the conversations they have with themselves, because self-talk is the engine of resilience. The voice that whispers, get up, try again, keep moving, this is not the end. Even when everything around you screams that it is. This is why resilience is not a gift that only a few are born with. It is a habit of inner dialogue that anyone can build. Your full attention, a decision to speak strength into yourself until strength becomes your natural state. And without that habit, life will break you. Life will test you again and again, with losses, betrayals, failures, and frustrations. And if your inner voice is weak, you will give up. But if your inner voice is strong, you will bend without breaking. You will stumble without stopping. You will suffer without surrendering. And in that endurance you will discover that every setback was not a wall, but a stepping stone. Every loss not the end, but the beginning of something greater. Because resilience transforms pain into purpose, hardship into growth, and struggle into story. Resilience begins with the belief that you are bigger than your circumstances, that no matter how hard this moment feels, it does not define your future. And this belief must be spoken into yourself daily, because when challenges come, your mind will want to quit. It will want to hide. It will want to complain. Resilience requires that you answer with stronger words. I will not quit. I will rise. I will endure. And each time you say those words, give them your full attention. Each time you choose persistence over surrender, you are building a reserve of strength that will carry you further than you ever thought possible. Think of the people who inspire you most. Are they the ones who had it easy, who never faced obstacles, who coasted through life untouched by hardship? No. The ones who inspire you are the ones who were tested, who were knocked down, who were told they couldn't, who lost everything, yet stood up again and again, and what gave them that power was resilience, fueled by self-talk that refused to let pain be the final word. Consider an athlete who loses the championship after years of training. At that moment they can either say, I'm done, I'll never win, or they can say, This loss is my teacher. This pain is my fuel. I will come back stronger. And the choice between those two inner voices is the difference between mediocrity and greatness, between giving up and going forward, and the same is true in every area of life. Relationships, careers, dreams. Because you will be tested, resilience will decide whether those tests break you or build you. Resilience also means reframing failure, because failure is not the opposite of success, it is the pathway to success, and resilient people understand this deeply. So when they fall, their self-talk does not condemn them, it corrects them. It says, "This is not failure, this is feedback, learn from it, adjust, keep moving." And that mindset keeps them in motion when others stop, and that motion eventually leads them to the breakthrough others never reach. Because most people quit too soon, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked resilience. They allowed one setback, one closed door to silence their pursuit. But resilient people take those same moments and turn them into fuel. And the only difference is the story they told themselves about what happened. Self-talk is the soil in which resilience grows, because the words you plant in yourself during hard times will determine whether you wither or withstand. And if you plant despair, you will weaken. If you plant determination, you will rise. And this is why affirmations of resilience matter. Words like, "I am stronger than this," "I will overcome," "I will not be defeated." Because those words become anchors when the storm hits. Reminders that even though the waves are high, you are not sinking, are sailing toward growth. Resilience is not just about surviving pain, it is about using it, transforming it into strength, because every hardship carries within it a lesson, and self-talk is what allows you to extract that lesson, to tell yourself, "This is shaping me, this is preparing me, this is refining me," instead of, "This is destroying me." And that shift in perspective is what turns ordinary people into extraordinary leaders, because resilience creates depth, empathy, wisdom, and character, qualities that only come through struggle endured with courage. But resilience also requires patience. Growth takes time, healing takes time, rebuilding takes time, and in those stretches of waiting, your self-talk is what sustains you, because your mind will want to doubt, to despair, to give in, but resilience means saying, "I can wait, I can endure, I can trust that my effort will bear fruit." And that patience is what allows resilience to complete its work. Sometimes the hardest battles are not the external ones but the internal ones. The battle to keep believing when results are not visible. The battle to keep showing up when nothing seems to change. The battle to keep speaking life when all you feel is exhaustion. And it is in winning those battles that resilience is truly born. Every story of greatness is a story of resilience. Entrepreneurs who went bankrupt before building empires, artists who were rejected before being celebrated, leaders who were doubted before being followed. And in every case, their resilience was not powered by luck but by self-talk that refused to surrender, words that turned each blow into motivation, each failure into foundation, and each delay into preparation. And the truth is, you have that same power, you can speak the same words, you can build the same resilience, if you decide that your voice will not echo despair, but declare determination. Resilience is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. And without it you will never cross, because every path to growth has obstacles. Every journey to success has struggles, every pursuit of greatness has pain, but resilience says, keep going. And if you keep going, you will outlast the obstacle, you will outlast the pain, you will outlast the doubt, And on the other side you will find a strength you never knew you had, a future you never thought you could reach, and a life you are proud to have built. So choose resilience. Choose to speak to yourself with words that build endurance. Choose to rise after every fall, to continue after every setback, to endure every hardship with the conviction that it is shaping you for something greater. And if you do, you will discover that resilience is not just about surviving storms, it is about learning to dance in the rain, to thrive in the midst of struggle, to grow through what you go through, and in the end, resilience will not only carry you to success, it will shape you into the person capable of sustaining it, because success without resilience collapses, but success with resilience endures, and that endurance is the mark of true greatness. Discipline is the bridge between intentions and results, between dreams and reality, between who you are today and who you want to become tomorrow, because it does not matter how inspired you feel, how clearly you can visualize your goals, or how passionately you talk about your future. If you lack discipline, all of it remains fantasy. But if you build discipline, even the smallest consistent actions compound into transformation, and at the heart of discipline lies self-talk, because every day you will face the temptation to drift, to delay, to do what is easy instead of what is necessary. And in those moments, it is the voice you hear inside your head that will decide your path. The voice that either says, skip it, do it tomorrow, or do it now. Your future deserves this effort. And the difference between those two inner dialogues is the difference between stagnation and success. Discipline is not punishment, though many people treat it as such. Discipline is freedom. The freedom to live with self-respect, the freedom to create results you are proud of, the freedom to build a life instead of waiting for one to be handed to you. And that freedom is built in the small choices repeated daily. The choice to wake up when the alarm rings instead of hitting snooze. The choice to work on your goals when distractions call. The choice to keep commitments you made to yourself when no one else is watching. And those choices are always preceded by a moment of self-talk, a tiny conversation in which you either strengthen your discipline or surrender it. Too many people believe discipline is about sheer willpower, but the truth is discipline is about training your inner voice to align with your higher vision, because willpower alone fades, but words repeated daily become beliefs, and beliefs drive behavior. If your self-talk constantly reminds you of your why, constantly reinforces the importance of staying consistent, constantly affirms that you are capable of doing hard things, then discipline becomes natural. It becomes less of a struggle and more of an identity. As when you believe, I am disciplined, I follow through, I keep my word to myself, then every action is filtered through that identity, and actions that match identity are effortless compared to actions that contradict it. Discipline is the practice of doing what is necessary, whether you feel like it or not, and feelings will always fluctuate. Some days you will feel motivated, others you will feel tired, distracted, or discouraged. But discipline says, I act regardless of my feelings. And that conviction is built by self-talk that reminds you feelings are temporary, but results are permanent, that comfort is fleeting, but pride in your effort lasts forever, that excuses are abundant, but growth is rare. You will only experience it if you choose discipline over distraction. Consider the student who studies consistently while their friends waste hours on entertainment, the athlete who trains on cold mornings when others stay in bed, the entrepreneur who works on their vision when the world tells them to settle. What separates them is not talent alone, It is discipline, fueled by self-talk that prioritizes their future over their present comfort. And this discipline compounds over time into extraordinary results, your full attention, while those who lacked discipline look back years later with regret, wondering why they never reached their potential, forgetting that potential without discipline is like a seed never watered, full of possibility, but never realized. Discipline also requires boundaries. If you do not control your environment will control you, and your self-talk must become the guard that says, "No, distraction does not serve my purpose. No, I cannot give my energy here. No, I will not waste time on things that steal from my vision." And while those boundaries may feel restrictive at first, they are the very thing that protects your energy, your focus, and your time, ensuring that they are invested in building the life you truly want, rather than scattered on meaningless pursuits. And yet, discipline is not about perfection, because you will stumble, you will miss days, you will fall into temptation. But discipline is about getting back up quickly, not allowing one missed step to become a downward spiral. And in those moments of failure, your self-talk becomes critical, because a weak inner voice will condemn you, saying, "See, you failed, you can't do this." But a strong inner voice will correct you, saying, "Yes, you slipped, but you are not quitting, you are learning, you are adjusting, you are still moving forward." And that ability to restart, to return, to recommit is what keeps discipline alive long term, because consistency is not about never falling, it is about always rising. Discipline is also deeply tied to respect, self-respect, because every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your trust in yourself. Every time you break a promise, you weaken it, and your self-talk in those moments is what makes the difference, because when you speak to yourself with respect, you act with respect, and when you speak to yourself with disrespect, you act carelessly. So the key to building discipline is to speak to yourself as someone who is worthy of success, someone who is capable of follow-through, someone whose words mean something, and over time that respect translates into actions that align with your highest standards. Think of discipline like building a muscle. At first it feels heavy, it feels uncomfortable, but with each repetition you grow stronger. What once felt impossible becomes automatic, and just as a trainer encourages you through every rep, your self-talk is the trainer of your mind, urging you to push past resistance, reminding you why you started, declaring that you are stronger than your excuses. And each time you listen to that voice, discipline muscle grows. Discipline also requires vision, because without a clear why, discipline becomes drudgery. But when your self-talk constantly reminds you of the future you are building, the life you are creating, the impact you are making, discipline becomes purpose-driven, it becomes meaningful, and meaning gives you the strength to endure short-term discomfort for long-term reward, because you know every act of discipline is a brick in the foundation of your dream. And remember, discipline is contagious. When you practice it in one area of your life, it spills into others. The discipline you build in your health strengthens your discipline in your work. The discipline you build in your finances strengthens your discipline in your relationships. And soon discipline becomes a way of living, a mindset of consistency, a habit of follow-through, and all of it is reinforced by the voice you choose to listen to every day. Discipline is not glamorous. It is not loud. It does not always receive applause, but it is the quiet force behind every achievement worth celebrating. And while motivation may get you started, only discipline will keep you moving. and the fuel of that discipline is self-talk. Because when no one else is watching, when no one else is cheering, when no one else knows whether you follow through or not, it is your inner voice that decides, and if that voice is strong, if it is trained, if it is aligned with your vision, then you will keep moving forward, one step at a time, until what once felt impossible becomes inevitable. So build discipline not as a burden, but as a blessing, not as restriction, but as liberation, not as punishment, but as power, and speak to yourself daily with words that strengthen your discipline, because every time you choose discipline over distraction, you are choosing growth over stagnation, freedom over regret, success over failure. When you live that way long enough, you will realize that discipline was not just the bridge to your dreams. It was the very process that transformed you into the kind of person capable of living them. Gratitude is the lens that transforms how you see your life, because no matter how much you achieve, how many goals you accomplish, or how many possessions you collect, if you do not learn to be grateful, you will always feel empty, always searching for the next thing, never satisfied. But when you practice gratitude, when you train your inner voice to focus on blessings instead of burdens, on progress instead of problems, on opportunities instead of obstacles, your entire experience of life shifts, because gratitude multiplies joy, strengthens resilience, fuels positivity, and keeps you grounded in the present moment. And what makes gratitude so powerful is not the events themselves, but the way you talk to yourself about them, 'cause two people can experience the exact same situation. One will complain, "I don't have enough, nothing goes my way," while the other will say, "I'm thankful for what I do have, I am grateful for what I have learned, I appreciate even the small steps of progress." And the difference in their quality of life is not external but internal, not circumstance but self-talk. Gratitude is not about ignoring hardship, it is about choosing to see light even in the darkness. And that choice is made in the words you speak to yourself every day, because when life challenges you, your inner voice can either magnify the pain or magnify the lesson, and gratitude says, "Even though this is hard, I am thankful for the strength it is building in me. I am thankful for the wisdom it is teaching me. I am thankful for the chance to grow." And when you speak in this way, challenges lose their power to crush you, because gratitude reframes suffering into growth, and growth into progress, and suddenly what once looked like loss becomes a gift in disguise. Gratitude also keeps you present, because your mind naturally wants to race into the future, worrying about what is next, or dwell on the past, replaying regrets, but gratitude anchors you in the now, reminding you, this moment is enough, this breath is enough, this opportunity is enough. And in that awareness you discover joy not in some distant destination, but right where you are. That joy becomes fuel that sustains you on the journey. Without gratitude, success feels hollow, because no matter what you accomplish, you immediately look for more, always chasing but never arriving. But with gratitude, even small victories feel significant, because you pause to appreciate them, to celebrate them, to remind yourself through self-talk, "I am proud of this step. I am thankful for this progress." And that appreciation multiplies motivation, because what you appreciate you attract more of, and what you ignore, diminish. Gratitude is also deeply connected to perspective, because life is never entirely good or entirely bad. It is always a mixture. And gratitude trains your inner voice to focus on the good, even when the bad is present. And that focus shapes your emotions, your energy, and your actions, because when you speak words of gratitude, You lift your spirit, you expand your vision, strengthen your resilience, and those qualities allow you to face challenges with courage instead of despair. Think of someone who wakes up each day and says, "I hate my life. I don't have enough. Nothing works out for me." Their energy is drained before the day even begins. Their focus is on lack. Their spirit is heavy. Their actions reflect that negativity. But think of someone who wakes up and says, "I am grateful for another day. I am grateful for the chance to grow. I am grateful for the people who support me. I am grateful for my health. I am grateful for the opportunities waiting for me." And suddenly their energy is lifted. Their focus is sharpened. Their spirit is light. And their actions reflect positivity. And over time the difference between those two people's lives becomes massive, all because of the self-talk of gratitude. Gratitude is also the cure for comparison, because in a world where it is so easy to measure yourself against others, to envy what they have, to feel like you are behind, gratitude reminds you to appreciate your own path, your own progress, your own journey, and your self-talk becomes a shield against jealousy, saying, "I celebrate their success, but I am grateful for my own growth. I am thankful for the unique story I am living." And that mindset keeps you content while still striving for more, ambitious yet at peace, driven yet joyful, and this balance is the secret to true fulfillment. Gratitude is not only about words, but about habits, and one of the most powerful habits is speaking gratitude to yourself consistently. Whether through affirmations, journaling, or simply pausing throughout the day to say, "I am thankful." And the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes, because gratitude, like any mindset, is a muscle, and self-talk is the training, and the stronger you train it, the more resilient, positive, and joyful you become. Gratitude also strengthens relationships, because when your inner voice is trained to appreciate, you notice the efforts of others, you see the good in them, you acknowledge their contributions, and that appreciation spills over into your words, creating deeper connections, stronger trust, and lasting bonds. Everyone wants to feel valued, and gratitude expressed sincerely is one of the greatest gifts you can give. But it begins with your self-talk, because if you constantly criticize yourself internally, you will unconsciously criticize others. But if you constantly affirm gratitude within, you will naturally affirm gratitude outward. Gratitude is also connected to abundance, because when you focus on what you have, you feel rich even if you have little. But when you focus on what you lack, you feel poor even if you have much. And the truth is, wealth is first a mindset before it is a bank account, and gratitude is the language of wealth, because it tells your mind, "I have enough, I am blessed, I am rich in opportunities, in relationships, in growth." And that mindset creates peace, while lack-focused self-talk creates anxiety. In the long run, peace is the real measure of prosperity. Gratitude also elevates resilience, because when setbacks come, a grateful person does not say, "Why me?" but instead, "What can I learn? What can I appreciate even here? How can I grow stronger from this?" And that shift keeps them moving forward when others stop, because gratitude is not naive. It does not deny pain, but it chooses to see beyond pain, to find meaning, to extract value. And this is why grateful people are often the most resilient people. They refuse to let hardship blind them to blessings. Gratitude, ultimately, is a choice, a daily decision, a practice of self-talk that you must cultivate intentionally, because negativity will come naturally. Complaints will rise easily, will whisper constantly, But gratitude must be chosen, must be spoken, must be reinforced until it becomes your natural state. And once it does, your entire experience of life will transform, because gratitude is not just about what you have, it is about how you see, and when you see through the lens of gratitude, every moment becomes richer, every challenge becomes lighter, every relationship becomes deeper. Every day becomes a gift. That is the true power of gratitude. To transform ordinary days into extraordinary experiences through the simple yet profound act of speaking to yourself with appreciation, thankfulness, with joy, until gratitude is no longer something you practice, but something you live. And when you live with gratitude, every minute truly works for you. Confidence is not something you are born with in full measure. It is something you cultivate, something you build, give them your full attention, something you strengthen through the way you speak to yourself every single day. Because confidence is not about arrogance or pretending to be perfect, it is about trusting yourself enough to take action, to step forward, to try even when the outcome is uncertain. That trust is forged in the fire of self-talk. Because if your inner voice constantly criticizes you, constantly reminds you of your flaws, constantly tells you that you are not enough, then your confidence will shrink until you hesitate, procrastinate, and ultimately hold yourself back. But if your inner voice is trained to affirm your strengths, to remind you of your progress, to encourage you to keep going even when things feel tough, then your confidence grows, and with that growth you begin to walk differently, speak differently, act differently, and attract different opportunities, because the world responds to the way you carry yourself, and the way you carry yourself is a reflection of the way you talk to yourself. Confidence is built not in the absence of fear, but in the decision to move forward despite fear. And that decision is powered by the words you say internally. Fear whispers, "What if you fail? What if they laugh? What if you're not good enough?" And confidence answers, "Even if I fail, I will learn. If they doubt me, I will keep going. Even if I stumble, I will rise again." And it is in that dialogue that courage is born, because courage is not the lack of fear but the ability to act with fear present. And the more often you engage in this dialogue, the stronger your confidence becomes, until one day the fear that used to paralyze you no longer has the same power, because your inner voice has grown louder than your doubt. Confidence also comes from competence, from doing the work, from practicing, from preparing yourself. Talk is the motivator that pushes you to build that competence, because without the voice that says, "Keep practicing, keep improving, keep learning," you will quit before you get good enough to be confident, and then you will believe the lie that confidence is something you either have or don't have, when in reality it is something you earn through consistent effort, fueled by consistent encouragement, and over time that effort compounds into skill, and skill reinforces confidence, and the cycle continues upward. Confidence is also about resilience, because you will face rejection, you will face setbacks. You will face moments when things do not go your way, and in those moments your self-talk will determine whether your confidence crumbles or strengthens. If you say, "This proves I am not good enough," your confidence will weaken, but if you say, "This is just a step in the process, this is part of the journey, this is refining me," then your confidence will deepen, because true confidence is not built on the illusion of perfection, but on the foundation of perseverance, the knowledge that no matter what happens you can handle it, and that knowledge is spoken into existence by the words you repeat to yourself. Confidence is also contagious, because when you carry yourself with belief, others are drawn to you, they trust you, they want to follow you, they want to work with you, and that external validation reinforces your internal belief, creating momentum. But it begins within, with the way you talk to yourself when no one else is listening. Because if you cannot convince yourself that you are capable, you will never convince anyone else. And so the most important audience you will ever speak to is yourself, and the most important speech you will ever deliver is the one you give in the privacy of your mind every day. Confidence also requires authenticity, because trying to fake it endlessly will only exhaust you, but true confidence comes from embracing who you are, flaws and all, and speaking to yourself with acceptance instead of constant criticism, reminding yourself that you are worthy not because you are perfect, but because you are human, growing, learning, striving, and this acceptance creates a grounded confidence that does not need to impress others, does not need to compete constantly, does not need to hide behind masks, but simply radiates belief rooted in truth. And this kind of confidence is unshakable. It is not dependent on circumstances or opinions, but on the relationship you have with yourself. Confidence is also tied to gratitude, because when you are grateful for your journey, for the progress you have made, for the strengths you do have, your self-talk naturally uplifts you. Gratitude silences comparison, reminding you, I may not be where they are, but I am further than I was. I may not be perfect, I am improving. And this perspective builds steady confidence, the kind that grows quietly but surely. One day you look back and realize how far you have come. Confidence also requires vision, because when you have a clear purpose, when you know where you are going, your self-talk has a target, and you can say, I am moving forward, I am building something, I am capable of reaching this goal. And that vision gives your words power, your words give your actions strength, and your actions give your confidence proof, and over time the cycle of belief and action creates a momentum that is almost unstoppable. Confidence is also about consistency, because you cannot speak positively to yourself one day, and then spend the rest of the week tearing yourself down. You must be intentional, daily, persistent, and patient, because building confidence is like building a muscle. It grows with repetition, with practice, with resilience, and your self-talk is the daily workout that strengthens it, each word a rep, each affirmation a set, each choice to silence doubt and amplify belief another step toward unshakable confidence. And remember, confidence is not about never doubting. It is about doubting less and believing more, about learning to make your voice of faith louder than your voice of fear, about teaching yourself through repetition and resilience that you are capable, you are worthy, you are enough. And the more you practice this, the more natural it becomes, until one day confidence is no longer something you have to think about. It is simply who you are, because your inner voice has been trained to align with your highest self, and that alignment transforms the way you live, the way you lead, the way you love, the way you pursue every dream in your heart. The real test of growth, transformation, and positive self-talk is whether you can turn lessons into lasting habits, because it is one thing to hear inspiring words. It is another thing to feel motivated for a day. It is something completely different and far more powerful to carry that motivation into your daily life until it becomes part of who you are. This is where many people stop short, because they wait for big breakthroughs while overlooking the small, consistent actions that create lasting change. But the truth is, every transformation begins with habits, and every habit begins with self-talk. The words you repeat to yourself daily become the blueprint of your behavior, and your behavior becomes the architecture of your life. If you want a life that reflects strength, joy, resilience, gratitude, and purpose, you must build habits of speaking those truths to yourself consistently until they are no longer optional practices, but automatic patterns, as natural as breathing. When you rise in the morning, your first thoughts set the tone for the entire day, and if your self-talk is negative, "I am tired," "I can't handle this," "I hate this routine," then your day begins in defeat before it has even started. But if your first words are, "I am grateful for this day," "I am capable of handling what comes," "I will choose to make progress," then you shift your mindset and your energy instantly. You cannot always control circumstances, but you can always control your perspective, and perspective is built on words, and words build habits. To make transformation last, you must create rituals, moments where you intentionally speak to yourself, because without structure, the old patterns of negativity creep back in, so you must carve space for affirmations, journaling, reflection, or even silent mantras that remind you who you are becoming, and over time, these rituals become your foundation, grounding you even when storms come. Storms will always come, but habits hold you steady, and the habit of self-talk is one of the strongest anchors you can ever build. Think about it. Every great athlete, every successful leader, every resilient human being has trained their inner voice, because performance is not just physical or external. It is deeply mental, and the voice inside is either your greatest enemy or your greatest ally. When you make it your ally, when you practice it daily until it becomes habit, you build an inner coach that pushes you forward instead of pulling you back. Lasting transformation also requires patience, because habits are not formed overnight, and self-talk does not shift permanently after a single attempt, but rather after thousands of repetitions, like drops of water that eventually carve stone. So you must be gentle with yourself when you stumble, when you fall into old patterns, when you hear yourself complain or criticize again, because transformation is not about perfection but about persistence. And if you remind yourself, "Every time I return to positive self-talk, I strengthen this habit," then you will keep going, and every time you keep going, the habit grows deeper, becomes second nature. And the beauty of building these habits is that they compound, because once you consistently train yourself-talk to be positive, you start to build other habits naturally. Habits of action, habits of gratitude, habits of discipline, because your inner voice becomes your coach, telling you, keep showing up, keep doing the work, keep choosing growth. And over time, this compounding effect creates exponential change, where you look back after a year or two and barely recognize the person you used to be, because you are stronger, calmer, more resilient, more grateful, and more confident, not because of one big moment, but because of thousands of small ones where you chose the right words, the right mindset, the right habits. And here is the keys. Lasting transformation is not about waiting until you feel like doing it. It is about creating habits that carry you even when motivation is low, because feelings are fleeting, but habits remain. If your self-talk habit is strong, then even on the days when you wake up tired, discouraged, or uncertain, your inner voice will remind you, "I can still do one small step, I can still keep going." And that reminder is what keeps the fire alive. Transformation is not about intensity, but about consistency. Think of a person planting seeds in a field. They do not see the harvest immediately, But if they keep planting daily, watering, nurturing, protecting, eventually the field flourishes. And so it is with self-talk habits, each word a seed, affirmation a drop of water, each repetition a step of protection. And if you stay consistent, your life will inevitably reflect the harvest of what you have spoken into it. But to make these habits last, you must also design your environment, because habits are influenced by what surrounds you. So ask yourself, are you listening to voices that lift you or voices that drag you down? Are you surrounding yourself with people who encourage growth, or with those who feed negativity? Are you consuming content that inspires you or content that weakens your mindset? Because no matter how strong your self-talk becomes, your environment matters, and if you want lasting transformation, you must align your environment with your words, choosing spaces, people, inputs that reinforce the habits you are building. And remember, the goal of transformation is not to become someone else, but to become the best version of yourself. And habits are the vehicle to get there, and self-talk is the fuel, because no habit can survive without inner dialogue supporting it, and no transformation can last without habits sustaining it. So the two must work together, self-talk guiding habits, habits reinforcing self-talk, until they become an unbreakable cycle of growth. And once you reach this point, where your habits are aligned with your self-talk, you no longer have to force growth. It becomes natural, almost effortless, because the momentum carries you, and that is the point of lasting transformation, to move from effort into flow, where you are not struggling against yourself anymore, but flowing with yourself, and your life becomes a reflection of that harmony. And the final truth is this: every minute you live is shaping you. And you can either let those minutes slip by unconsciously, repeating the same old patterns, or you can make every minute work for you, by building habits of self-talk that lead to growth, resilience, gratitude, confidence, and joy, because at the end of the day, transformation is not an event, but a lifestyle, not a destination but a journey. And when you choose to fill that journey with positive words, consistent habits, and daily choices, you will discover that the life you dreamed of is not somewhere far away. It is here, in the small decisions you make, in the self-talk you practice, in the habits you form, and when you live this way, every minute truly works for you, and your transformation not only lasts but becomes the legacy you leave behind.